Good morning and welcome to the Closer's Inner Circle podcast. Today, our topic is activity beats motivation with Denise Griffitts and Bengay III. And this is part 5 of a 10-part series that we started at the beginning of the year. This is what we're talking about. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and it goes. It depends on mood, comfort, and circumstances and how hungry you are. Activity is different. Action creates momentum whether you feel inspired or not. So, on today's episode, Ben and I are going to dig into this idea, one that learned. Sorry, I don't want to hiccup on you, but I think I'm going to learn directly from his mentor, Dr. Napoleon Hill. Now, Dr. Hill was unwavering on this point. In Think and Grow Rich, he stresses that success comes from decisive, consistent action. I use that word a lot, consistent and consistency, not waiting for the perfect moment or the right feeling. So, in essence, this episode is about discipline and, as Ben just reminded me, systems. It's about daily actions that don't rely on enthusiasm. It's about showing up even when motivation is low, or as we say in the South, I don't wanna. I just don't wanna. We talk about why waiting to feel ready is a trap, how structure actually creates freedom, and why consistent activity quietly outperforms bursts of effort every single time. So motivation may start the conversation, but success starts and is sustained by action. And by the way, pick up your copies of The Closers Part 1 and 2 from Ronzoni Books, Ronzone books on eBay. And every book comes signed and dated by Ben with free shipping. And we invite you to follow along with us every week. This episode of the Closers Inner Circle podcast is supported by Diana Fritz. Many people who face serious health challenges discover a depth of strength. I'm going to read that again. A depth of strength that they didn't know they had. That transformation from survival to purpose is at the heart of her book, Uniquely Imperfect, Uniquely Qualified. I have that book in my library, and it's one that I've picked up many, many times, and I'll pick it up again. This inspiring book reminds us that our hardest moments often become our greatest teachers, to helping us to lead, grow, and make a meaningful impact in every area of life. You can find her book on Amazon and connect with Diana Fritz on LinkedIn, Facebook, and her website at grituiuq.com. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I be fine. How you be?
Do I sound like I'm Southern today? I
You
try
always sound
not.
like you're Southern.
See, I don't hear it. I've heard people say, "Oh, you've got the prettiest accent." Like, what? I have a drawl. Those are two different things. But I don't hear it.
I train my Southern accent away, a lot of it occasionally. I say things and people say, "Where are you from?" So it was probably just a yawl or something that slips in.
Right.
But the uh, the accent, I thought that a Southern accent didn't sound intelligent. I don't know why I thought that. Probably heard it somewhere. And so I started working on it and getting rid of it. And Zig came up to me one day and said, "Ben, you're making a mistake." And I said, "What?" And he said, "You're losing your Southern accent, and that's what they pay me for."
That's true.
And so I quit trying to get rid of it, but I won't do the phony one. Gigi who's an honorary Southerner, born in California, but she loves the South. It only took about 24 hours to convert her on our first trip back there. Uh,
Right. To
but
Atlanta, right? You took her to Atlanta?
Yeah, Atlanta, first time. A cute story. We walk into whatever hotel it was, one of the nicer ones, and standing over at the registration desk across the lobby was a gorgeous blonde behind the counter. And I said, "Honey, you're about to meet your first Southern belle. You're going to really," oh, that my sister, who she'd met many times, but I said, "You're going to enjoy this." So I walked up to the blonde. And I said, "Speak some Southern to my wife, please." And the lady looks up. She was from Yugoslavia.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
I,
That's funny.
this town and this hotel is filled with Southern Belle, and I walk up to a Yugoslavian. So my plot to ingratiate Gigi to the South and the South to Gigi didn't work well.
Yeah, I was
That,
talking. I did on Tuesdays, I always do 5 or 6 pre-interviews for Your Partner in Success Radio. And these are conversations. I mean, it's us getting comfortable with each other. What do we want to talk about? It's not a question asked thing. It's me figuring out if we're going to be compatible. And, is your topic interesting? And it works beautifully. But at some point, one of my now scheduled guests said something about Zig Ziglar. I said, "Oh, do you ever listen to me and Ben Gay?" And she, no. I said, "You need to because he was friends and he and Ben Zig worked for him." She goes, "Where do I go?" I said, "The Closers Inner Circle podcast." She just adores Zig Ziglar. I said, "Well, you're gonna love Ben."
well, he was even more like Zig was in his partnership in Holiday Magic Cosmetics with a guy named Mel Lanius. Zig was the personality guy, nice and sweet and wonderful. In my business, Jimmy Rucker and I were partners. Jimmy was the Zig Ziglar of our relationship, in that everybody loved Jimmy, and some were a little iffy about me. But
No.
I was the hard. I've told you the story before, but it cracks me up. Sales Infiltration, the last chapter in the Closers Part Two, the best thing ever written about selling. Thank you very much. Is really a tribute to Jimmy Rucker and to a degree to Zig, because it shows what sophisticated people really do to get inside the hearts of other people and therefore become more effective salespeople. But my first standout thing, we did a seminar somewhere and I was the featured speaker and so on. And Zig was sort of, pardon me, Jimmy was sort of my wingman. And we'd been there about an hour, I guess. Maybe the first section was over. And these little girls, 10, 11, 12, I'm guessing, came running up and, "Hi, how are you, Mr. Gay?" I said, "I'm fine," because they had probably the first seminar they'd ever been to. And Mr. Gay this, Mr. Gay that. And I was sort of puffing out. These little girls recognized my greatness. Then Jimmy walks up and they said, "Uncle Jimmy, how are you?" And I thought, damn, there's the difference.
They he has a different personality, I know, but kids are going to gravitate to the people that are going to give them a lot of attention.
Yep. And
And
Jimmy
really
apparently
that's
had.
yeah,
We
yeah.
hadn't been in the room with him an hour, and he was Uncle Jimmy.
Oh, that is too funny. See, I have a nephew that I don't think he loves me. I really don't. Because when he was a small child, I was trying to get him corralled into my vehicle, and he was Batman. He was going to be Batman all day. And I finally said, "Jimmy, sit down. I'm Batman." I said, "No, you're not. You're baby cakes." He didn't speak to me until he was 16 years old. I think he was about 4 at
Some
the
kids are
time.
sensitive.
Yeah. So now when I really want to get him, baby cakes, how you doing? Oh God, Aunt Denise, really? He gets all Twitter pated. I do it on purpose.
Get too far in, I wanted to thank Diana Fritz for sponsoring the show today. Will admit, I have not yet read Uniquely Imperfect, Uniquely Qualified. Did I get it right?
He did, and it's a fantastic book. She just let me know the other day that I think she's 12 or 15 years into her cancer journey. She had a
Mm,
very rare type of cancer and she lost an eye. And it stalled her for a while.
yeah, it
I
would
look
me.
different, I feel different. I don't know what to do. And she got a hold of herself beautifully. It's a fantastic book.
Well,
It
I will get
really
it and read
is.
it.
Yeah, and then we can talk about it because I mean, when I read it, because I read it before I had her come on the show, and look, there's teardrops on it. I
Mm,
actually got it wet in
yeah.
places. So it's an amazing book, and she's a lovely, lovely person.
Well, Diana, we appreciate it, and I will get your book and read it. I think I've heard of it, but I'm not sure. However, I'm a great critic and or praiser of good titles. You know, there's the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, that's exactly what people do. If you have a unique title on the front and some impactful artwork, people do judge books by their cover. Sometimes they don't read them, but that's how come they buy them. So great title. And with Denise's endorsement of it, I'm going to get it before the day's over and read it. But anyway, I want to thank you for being a supporter of what we try to do here.
Oh, thank you. I think it's available if you have a Kindle subscription, which I do. You can also get it on Kindle if you don't want to buy the hardback or the paperback. So I'm pretty sure she has Audible too. So you can find it. But it's
I
called,
will find it, and I want the
yeah,
book version. I'm a
yeah, me
hold it in
too.
the hand type person.
Yeah, and I do, but it's called Uniquely Imperfect, Uniquely Qualified. It's an
Excellent.
amazing story.
Excellent. That reminds us the fact that we have a friend going through the cancer journey now with liver cancer. And she's
Oh gosh.
finished her initial stuff. I offered her uh, a kidney or a part of a kidney or however that works because she's that dear friend of both of ours, but she's been a friend of Gigi's since they were in kindergarten. And so she said, well, I'll find out, um, but I don't think I'd do that to you. And I said, it's a sincere offer. You need a kidney, you got it. And she goes to her doctor, who's also my doctor, and he's Dr. Gillane. He says to her, what am I going to do with an 83-year-old liver?
I was wondering that myself. Kidney. Is it kidney or liver? Because liver you can give part of.
Yeah,
Kidney, I think they
it's
need the
liver.
whole thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's liver.
okay. Well,
But
unless you've been a lifelong drunk, it should still be viable.
well, I don't wouldn't mention that in the interview for giving it, you know. Oh, and the other thing I'll have to admit, a little selfishness. There was some hint of I could give part of it to the whatever foundation, which would free up part of a liver or something to give to her. And I said, nope, got to be direct.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear about the paperwork got botched and your liver was never used that you gave us, and she still doesn't have one. So I was a little close to the vest on that. From me to Maryland or no deal. But it turns
right.
out Dr. Glang doesn't want an 83-year-old liver with a questionable background.
Well, he is your doctor, so there is that. But I'm so glad you offered.
Well, she's like Gigi. She's a very special, sweet person. And my favorite thing, she's also my barber and Gigi's hairstylist. My favorite thing is Gigi and I go together to get our mutual haircuts. And I just love to sit there and listen to the two of them because they're both wonderful, sweet people. They're both slightly goofy, if you know what I mean.
I do.
And
Have you met me?
yeah, it's one of those things where, as much as I like to talk, when those two are talking, I don't want to miss anything. Here's a Gigi one. The other day she sold a goodly amount of costume jewelry to a lady in China through eBay, uh, and but the lady didn't pay instantly, and I think that Gigi said they have 4 days to pay or something, and I said, what percentage actually pay? You must have a gut feeling of is she going to pay or is she not? And Gigi said, listen carefully, it's 75-15. I said, 75%, 15%? She said, yeah. I said, doesn't that total up to 90%? And she said, yeah, I guess it does.
See,
I
I don't
said,
get math either. When I went back to college and they said you have to have algebra, I said that's a made up bunch of crap that somebody who couldn't get laid made up with a candle in a cave. I almost flunked.
Algebra
I,
is when I became a disciplinary problem. They took it up in the fifth grade.
me
I
too.
I didn't get it, didn't want to get it, and started being funny. I started working on being wittiest in the class, which will get you thrown out of school, I found out.
Well,
But
I got sent to what you would now call, it's in a university, but I went to the principal's office more than once. They're like, Denise, you're one of the smartest people in there. Why can't you get it? I said, I don't want to. It's
yeah,
garbage.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Why would I?
Yeah, I'm never going to use it. Give me something I can use.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's a 75-15 thing in Gigi's mind. That's important you understand that. Don't add it up and try and figure out what the 10 is, the missing 10. But that's the payment structure when you sell to China, people in China.
I'll be darned.
That was my reaction.
See, now I'm just lost. All right, let's talk about systems because,
All right.
and you taught me your system that Dr. Hill taught you, and I've been using it. And this year, I think I shared with you, I needed to tighten up my system because it's somewhere along the line I got a little bit sloppy, a little bit careless with it. And all of a sudden, I realized I was running around going, what the heck? Oh, geez, no. And I would get lost. I would get lost in my own desk. That's not a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah. I know the feeling. Uh, we were going to talk also about discipline today,
Yeah,
and I can't separate discipline from systems. They both come to my mind together and instantaneously, because a system will save you. Is probably the most important of the two, but if you don't have the discipline to work the system, you know,
right,
then you're
right.
screwed. They go hand in hand. But that was among the first things Dr. Hill, within a week or two of meeting him and beginning to work with him, that he taught me was the what we came to call the daily success system. There's a, I know you don't watch much television, but there's
Mm-mm.
a commercial for some medicine that helps you if you get shingles or prevents you from getting it or cuts the odds or something. But I love it when the punchline or the repeating theme of the ad is shingles doesn't care. And you say, but I had chicken pox when I was little. Shingles doesn't care. Um, but I'm really careful. I don't go near anybody with shingles. Shingles doesn't care. And that's the same thing with the system. I'm not in the mood. I just, I'll do that later. Well, the system doesn't care about your mood. The system says, do this. This is what comes next. Or at the worst, because I'm a procrastinator sometimes, at the worst is the system makes you do it by the end of the day. Doesn't much care in what order you do them. Years ago, Earl Nightingale used to talk about a efficiency expert named Ivy Lee, and he called on Charles Schwab one day and said, he observed him for a day, and he said, "All right, here's my advice to you. Make a list of the five most important things you have to do tomorrow. Do it now." And he sat there, and Schwab apparently wrote it out. He said, "Now number them in the order of their importance." He numbered them 1 through 5. He said, "Now do number one until it's done, and then number two, and so on down the list." And I sort of set me up for when I met Dr. Hill and he started talking about systems and discipline and all. I was thinking, yeah, I've heard that, and told him about Ivy Lee, and Dr. Hill nodded like I was talking about an alien. He'd heard of him, but that wasn't what he was trying to teach me. He was trying to teach me a system and then the discipline to do it. But he never emphasized 1 through 5. He said, if you're supposed to do it today, get it done today and don't go home until everything on the page is done. Well, that'll shape you up right there. The first couple of times I ran into a little snag and I was still sitting in my office at 10 o'clock at night. I thought, hey, there must be a better way. Well, the better way was not to procrastinate, to move quicker, focus. That was another thing Dr. Hill was always saying to me in the early days: action, Ben, take action. And the other one was focus, Ben, focus. Because I'm like the crow with the shiny object. It doesn't take much for my head to come up and I'm thinking about something else. So the daily success system he taught me, and it's really simple. It's just a calendar and how to work it properly and make things happen and map out. People say, on Sunday night, map out next week. Well, I mapped out next week a year ago, plus a few things that have popped up in the meantime. When I get my new calendar every year, the first thing I do is block out personal time. When I first started working with Dr. Hill was, I told him one day, he said, how do you, as busy as you are, I was giving 300 speeches a year and on the road a lot. He said, how do you handle the family? Because he had problems with his family. He'd stayed at our house whenever he was in town and admired the relationship that my first wife and I, she's passed away now, my first wife and I had and our with our son, Ben the fourth. And he said, how do you do that? And I said, well, I'm busy, but I fit family into the nooks and crannies and it works. And he said, we found the problem. I want you to plot out, and he got out my new calendar. He said, I want you to plot out family time first, and then we're going to fit the business into the nooks and crannies. And either in that conversation or later when I said, well, I don't know if I've got, uh, if I'll have time for all that. And he said, well, you've heard that the work expands to fit the time allowed. And I said, yes. He said, the work also contracts to fit the time allowed. I can take everything you're going to do, and now I'm paraphrasing, but I can take everything you're going to do next week that you're going to fill up 5 days with, and I can contract it down to 2.5 days max without even looking at the lists because the work expands and contracts to fit the time allowed. Now, how much time do you want to spend? And he knew we love Mendocino on the Northern California coast. How much time do you want over there? And I said, well, we like long weekends. I can't do a week or two without doing something more constructive. But we like long weekends in Mendocino. He said, how many a year? And I forget whether I said 4 or 5. Now we do 4, but whatever it was. He said, all right, let's map them out. Get your wife on the phone if we have to, but let's map them out. And so, long story, somewhat shorter, I blocked out 4 or 5 long weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Mendocino. Not, you don't count the day it took to get there, the half a day or whatever, nor the day to get back to the office. 4 days in Mendocino. Blocked it out for the 4 or 5 long weekends. He said, now highlight that in yellow and nothing else goes in there. Nothing. And then what about time you just spend without entertaining people? You and your wife have dinner out 4 or 5 times a week. I know that, but it's not dinner with the two of you. It's what night would you prefer to go out with just the two of you? What's now called date night. And
Date night, right.
yeah, I told him, and he said, good, let's write that in. Let's say it was Fridays. I think that's what Gigi and I now do is Fridays for sure. Maybe an extra time or two, but Fridays is sacrosanct. Nothing happens after about 4 o'clock on Friday. And I don't work on Saturday. I don't do podcasts and so on Saturdays and Sundays. So and I was looking at my calendar as we were doing this, and God, I hope we save some time for my job. But it turned out there was plenty of time for my job, even on paper. I could tell that, and then in reality, I wound up with more time than I had before the system because,
Because you weren't scrambling.
right,
Okay.
exactly. So that was the system that I still use to this day. I'm looking at the calendar right now, Wednesday, February 4th. 10 a.m. Denise Griffitts show dash move up Wednesday. In other words, before, when you and I are done, it will be moved up to next Wednesday before I cross it out, before I do anything else. And now, in your case, many things I have to look at the calendar, see if it's in yellow, is it time sensitive or what have you. But in your case, I just know Wednesday morning the answer is no to anything
Right.
because that's 10 a.m. with Denise. And you block it out, and then it gets down to Gigi will say, "Do you have anybody to talk to today?" Podcast or whatever. She never asked that on Wednesday, but
She knows.
she knows.
Yeah.
Followed by Mark Harris at noon and Don Cody at 2 p.m. Almost every Wednesday, all three of you back to back. But the rest of the time, other than Wednesday, I write it in the calendar. Then I put a note on a separate piece of paper the night before, which I put on the bathroom mirror. And Gigi will say, "Do you have anybody to talk to today?" I say, "I don't know. Look on the mirror." It's one of the reasons the book, the daily uh, planner, let's see what it's called, 2026 Standard Diary Daily Reminder, never leaves the office. I've got the next 2 years of my life laid out on this calendar and the one for next year. Uh, I can't remember all that stuff. If I lost the calendar, I would be wandering around. Where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing uh, for the next year or two? So the system controls your time. You get to plan it, but it controls your time. And therefore, people say, I was so jammed up today and so frantic. I'm thinking, why did you schedule that? If you're jammed up and frantic, you wrote it down. And then I remember they didn't write it down. They don't have a system. They're not following a system. So that's truly great. And among the headlines in the outline you laid out for today was motivation and that it fades from time to time. Well,
Oh,
discipline,
from hour to hour. Depends on what's going
yeah,
on.
absolutely. Zig made it sort of famous in my mind. Zig Ziglar. Uh, he came up to Zig allegedly, or he made it up, but it's a great story. Came up to him and said, I get so motivated when I go to these seminars, but then it fades. And said something like, yeah, it's like bathing. We recommend it daily.
Daily. I remember that.
Yeah.
But it's
And
true. You
it
have
is
to
true.
you have to keep a handle on things. I started using your system a couple of years ago when you first told me about it. And at first it was like, oh, geez, do I have time to do all this? And then I realized I better find the time because
Yeah,
I was wandering around going, oh, gee, well, I was saying, oh, never mind. But you could
I
pick
get
up
it.
what I
I
was
get it.
saying. But my link, and I knew we were going to be talking about goals and systems and all the things that we're talking about. So my LinkedIn newsletter today was goals versus systems, Scott Adams style. And of course, me being me, I geared it towards podcasting. But he talks about the same thing. In fact, he makes a deceptively simple point. Goals are outcomes, systems are behaviors.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and I believe you. I believe him. Because if I don't have a system, if I don't have it in front of me, I'm lost. I'm thinking, well, I'll just go make a gumbo. I lose my mind. So it has to be written down for me.
I think I've told you this before, but we have a beautiful area above us, north of us, up the hill, as we call it, because we live in the foothills of Sierras, and it's called Apple Hill. It's where they grow Christmas trees.
You
And
told me, yeah. I went and looked. I went and looked that website up. I was like, oh, I like the fir trees. So,
you were talking about McGee's. Yeah,
oh, that was
McGee's.
McGee's. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he was a friend of two of my wives, or three of my wives, actually,
But
all
it's still
three.
out there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is, but he's
Okay.
dead. Uh, Jim McGee is gone, but his place is still in the family and so on. But you're talking about another story, which I'll touch on briefly. My wife had some property and wanted to grow a few Christmas trees and see if that would be a business to be in. Well, I knew enough about it to know it's not. From the time you plant it till you cut one is 5 years. That's not my personality. Uh, Two, I'm not a manual laborer by nature. And if I want to hire somebody else to plant the trees and grow them and water them, I'll just wait till Christmas and go buy one.
Hmm. Did you go chop it down yourself, though? You have to do it properly.
Yeah, exactly. They follow you around because you can destroy a tree for the next 5 year cutting if you don't cut it properly and leave a
Right.
branch and so on. But anyway, McGee said to me, he listened and with a smile looking back, what he was thinking is, don't do it. You know, but he said, I don't know, Ben, plant 1,000 and see what you think. And I
Mm.
almost threw up. 1,000? I was talking about 10, maybe.
No,
Yeah.
that would not do you. That's not a business. That's a hobby.
Yeah. So anyway, we're up driving around in the Apple Hill area, and which we do occasionally on weekends, 4 or 5 times a year. It's sort of nice up there, and they've got little snack places and so on. And we've been driving around for about an hour. This is on a Monday or a Tuesday. Gigi said, this is really nice and a pleasant surprise, but what are we avoiding? And I said, what do you
Oh,
mean? She said, we're doing this on a Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was, because you're avoiding something in your daily successes. What is it? I said, starting a new book.
oh, I know how that feels.
Yeah. And she said, how far or something like that do we have to drive to get that out of your system? I'm a little tired of looking at apple trees. And I said, all right, we'll go back home. So we came back and I started the book, but she caught me procrastinating. And without discipline, even the system won't save you from procrastination. So I've had to sort of learn that the hard way and apply the discipline. Steve Williford, one of my co-writers in several books, including The Winner's Edge, which is a pretty neat book, I hired him and paid him to write the book. And then he said, okay, I got the first chapter done. You do the second one. I said, I don't want to do a chapter. That's what I hired you for. He said, I know, but I'm going to teach you some stuff. He said, Ben, you're a better writer than I am, which I agreed with. What we're missing here is discipline. So I want you to write a page a day. You don't have to write a book, just write a page a day. Put it on that famous calendar of yours, one page, and a publishable, ready to go to the printer copy. And you do that 250, 300 days in a row, you got a book. You don't have to hire me to do anything. So I've written a page a day, whether it's my book, ghostwriting somebody else's book, or a direct mail letter, sales letter. I've written a page of publishable copy every day since we had that conversation years ago. And I hear people say, someday I'm going to write a book. Well, I've written, ghostwritten, or co-written over 35. You say 35, and then since then, it's 36, 37, but I'm going to stick with 35 plus books. And my great secret was discipline and a system and a page a day. I don't like to make cold calls. Well, let's put on your book 5 cold calls a day, or 4, or whatever it is in your business, or 100 if you work in a call center. But put it in the book, and you don't get to cross them out till you do them. And suddenly it's not 10,000 calls a year. It's, however you broke it down uh, per day. And that makes it much more doable. A few years ago, I decided for some bizarre reason that I wanted to make an extra $1 million a year, not from rental income or whatever that was already coming in, or normal day-to-day business extra. So I mapped it out, and I'm quoting from memory because I wrote in my book $2,800. I think it was $2,739 you have to make a day to make $1 million a year. So I wrote down, I'm not good at numbers, so I wrote down 2,800. And that's my goal monetarily every day, $2,800. And then to keep your nose into the system, if you have a big day and you make $15,000, that doesn't get you off for the next 3 or 4 or 5 days. Next, tomorrow, you got to make an extra 2,800 to stay on script. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is you don't fall behind either. If today, God forbid, well, I've already done some business, but if say today I didn't sell anything, didn't make any extra money, then tomorrow it's still $2,800. It wouldn't be 5,600. A big day doesn't make it zero. $2,800 a day. It's not exciting, but it grinds it out. And that's maybe another part of the discipline and system. It's not exciting. My life used to be very exciting when I woke up and reinvented it every morning. That was excitement. I had no idea what I was going to be doing or where I was going to be or anything else until Dr. Hill got a hold of me and started hammering on systems and discipline. And to a minor degree, but it really is important, the motivation thing. Sometimes they'll say, Ben Gay's a motivational speaker. And I say, no, I'm not. I teach sales, marketing, human development. I don't teach motivation. I'm not a lounge act. You might get motivated while listening, but that's your decision. That's not what I do. And that goes back to Zig saying, motivation doesn't last. The guy said to him, he said, no, neither does bathing. That's the reason we recommend it daily. So uh, motivation by itself, taken in its most general form, is nonsense because
It
it does,
is because we all have squirrel brains.
right?
I mean, I do. I know I do. And I'll catch myself because I've got floor to ceiling windows in the back of my house. I've got trees out there. I've got, squirrels all over the place. And I will catch myself going, squirrel. I do. I live alone. Thank God. But yeah, squirrel. It's embarrassing. I'll catch myself going, I wonder if anybody saw that. It's like, no, the cats did though. They're
Well,
laughing
Dr.
at you.
Dr. Hill caught me at that one. It wasn't a squirrel, but the same concept. I'm sitting at my desk. He's at the other end of it. It's a conference table, actually. He's at the far end of it. He was to my left, across from me to my right is the door that opened up to my boss's office, Martha Conley, who started off, we called her a secretary in the beginning, but gradually she took over my life. And so something happened out in the outer room where she was, and I looked up and leaned over to get a better view of whatever it was. And Dr. Hill said, "Focus, Ben, focus. You know, we're
Yes,
working on this
squirrel works
project.
for me.
Yeah,
A
we're
squirrel.
working
Okay,
on
focus now.
it. Has nothing to do with what's going on in Marty's office. Nothing.
Right.
Focus." So that was a discipline, focus, and then take action. And I've told you this story before, but you touched on action a little while ago, which is the most common theme in Think and Grow Rich. He says people are always looking for the deep secret in Think and Grow Rich. He said it's action, take action. And somebody counted it up. I don't know what it is, but there's some number of times in Think and Grow Rich that point is made, like 17 times or 27 times or something. Take action. And the first time I heard that, he flew into town, was with me a few days, went back home to South Carolina, came out a week or so later. He's there. We're having a meeting, and he must have recognized it was the same meeting he'd been in a week before. Comes back, and we're having a meeting, and he quickly discovers it's the same subject we were on the last 2 times he was there. And finally, when the team left, the mastermind group left the office, he looked up and said, Ben, what do you need to know that you don't know now to launch this product? It was a line of men's cosmetics to launch this product. And I sat there for a minute. And I said, I don't think anything. He said, take action. You're dithering, a, a, a word that comes from the Napoleon Hill era.
I
You're,
love that word. I use it a lot.
yeah, well,
And
I
mostly
used to
when I'm
do it a
pointing
lot.
my finger at myself. You're dithering, Denise.
Yeah, exactly. He said, you're dithering, take action. So I called them all back. I said, anybody need anything with this never-ending project that they don't have now? And that was legal production, the artwork, the, whatever. 10 or 12 people sitting around the table. They all went, no, no, we're good to go. I said, then let's do it. And they all got up and went and did it. They could have done that a month at least before. In fact, looking back, it was so simple to put together a cosmetic line. Probably could have done it in the first meeting, but it came down to take action. Don't dither. I
What do
caught,
you, what I'm hearing though is nobody wanted to take responsibility for it.
well, yeah, but that's my fault. I was president of the company.
Ah,
There was nobody else at the table higher than a vice president. There was nothing higher than vice president, than me, than the owner of the company. So the they couldn't take action. Somebody with a little courage perhaps should have said, "Why do we have to meet next week? Can't we just do it?" But nobody did. I have a feeling that was 30, 40 years ago. I think we could still be meeting weekly. And the product line, it was called High Tides, Tides, a men's product line. Um, the High Tides never would have come to fruition. Speaking of that, little minor thing, mind triggers and what you can do to trigger your mind to do things. Our office was right on a canal that came right off of San Francisco Bay, and so there were homes and a few offices and 4 or 5 yacht clubs, boat harbors between my office and the actual bay. So whenever I need to come up with a product line name, among the things I would do is Marty Conley, Martha, the chief of staff of the business eventually, would hop on the boat. We had a small boat tied up right in back uh, of the office, and we cruise around through the bays because people get terribly creative when they're naming their boat. If they've never had a beautiful idea in their life, they will have it when they name their boat. And so High Tides, the name of the men's cosmetic line, came from, as best I recall, the second harbor, a little inlet that I pulled into. Marty with her legal pad and me reading the names off the transoms of individual boats. And I said, there it is, High Tides. That's it. We're heading back to the office, which leads me to admitting I don't think I've ever had an original thought in my life. What I'm good at doing, and I recommend our listeners do this, is keeping notes and putting things together. For instance, when I started the call center industry in the United States in 1976, it was because that was the beginning of the timeshare or vacation ownership business, and I did a lot of work with them. The Closers was the Bible of that business when they began, and still they're one of our largest customers. And what I figured out was they were taking a hotel room and selling it 51 times a year. The other week was so they could refurbish it 1 week a year. They didn't sell that week, but they were taking a room in a location that most people couldn't afford, cutting it in half and half and half and half till they got down to 51 shares and selling it. And when I looked into the 800 number industry back then, an 800 number was $10,000
and you
for a,
had to have what is a T1 line or something? It was incredibly expensive.
yeah, $10,000 bought you 240 hours. And at the end of in a month, and at the end of the month, whether you'd used all the time or not, it was gone. You got a new bill for $10,000. And if you'd used up all of the 240 hours in the previous month, your new $10,000 bill also had an overtime added onto it. So you could spend, I guess, an endless amount of money on an 800 number. So nobody had them in their advertising. It was obvious to me they should. So I thought, timeshare. That's what they did with those expensive rooms that they couldn't sell to any one person. If you, back then, if it was $24,000 for a week for, plus maintenance fees forever, but $24,000, take 24,000, multiply it by 51. Who would you have sold that to? Nobody, unless you cut it up and made a time share out of it. So the beginning of the 800 call center industry was timeshare. Take a phone number no one person in their right mind would pay and break it up. We had, of course, we were paying overtime by that time, but we had at any given time 1,500 corporate customers and who paid a base fee, and then they paid per call, whether we were just taking messages for them or plotting out their life or whatever. So much per call. Well, we were taking 86. I forget what was an average or the peak, but the figure 86,000 calls a day. So you can chop up a $10,000 bill pretty quick by doing that. The point of this, though, isn't timeshare or call centers. It's take notes, have a notepad with you at all time, and write down things that stick in your mind. You don't have to have a place for them yet. If you go, "Ooh, that's good," write it down. I was looking at an ad on television the other day for personal injury attorneys, and they're with the disclaimers at the bottom that are small print and a full paragraph, and you don't have time to read it. But what it's basically saying is everything you saw in the ad is nonsense. We were lying to you then to get you to call because that isn't going to happen, and this isn't going to happen, and that isn't going to happen. Well, these two otherwise objectionable brothers who are injury attorneys, at least in California. I don't know where else they operate. And I had reason to call them for a client one day. I never talked to them, but the clerk, her job was to get rid of you, not to suck you in. And on their new commercial, this guy looks in the camera, sincerely nice guy, and says, "Just call us and tell us what happened to you." I'm like, whoa, that
That's a
is
call to action.
that, yeah. But just tell us what happened to you. You're not going to have to fill out legal forms. We just want to know what happened to you. And that fits into so many, that'll be popping up in other people's scripts here pretty quick in some form or other. Selling precious metals. I have several clients that do that. Most of our listeners in the United States have probably seen their ads on television. I came up with a line for them that I've used in numerous places. You're talking to a person who's called because he saw the gold or the silver or the platinum ad on television, probably. And say, before we get started, let's set the table. Is this a one-time transactional operation? You just want to buy some gold because you heard you ought to, or do you want to be in the inner circle where we build generational wealth for you and your family? Which group should I put you in? Well, now we know their seriousness and a bit about their budget, and we also know what they're there for. If you want to buy two ounces of gold because your brother did, fine, not a problem. I'll have someone write that up for you. Hold on. If you want to build generational wealth, which means a program of investing weekly, daily, quarterly, whatever, then you go into the inner circle. Well, who doesn't, under that condition, who doesn't want to be in the inner circle and build generational wealth, no matter what you had in mind when you made the phone call? I got that by writing it down when a client of mine said it to, or I think it was a real estate transaction. Do you just want to buy a house and rent it out, or are we starting down the road to build generational wealth? And the guy said, "Well, generational wealth." He just said, I'm not going to buy one house. I'm going to buy 10 houses, 50 houses, whatever. We got with a guy who understood that basic concept. Jimmy Rucker and I got with him years ago when we first started making some serious money. And we bought a house. We thought it'd be nice to have a house. And we got with a guy named Don Jones who really knew his business, not real estate. I mean, he knew that too, but he knew what he was up to. He had 1,500 rental units, some in, single family homes, some in apartment buildings. They call them doors. He had 1,500 doors, and he got a hold of us. We were 22, 23 years old, put us on a generational wealth program. I forget how he worded it, but that was the gist of it. And we bought a house a week for a year. We went from neither we went from a rented apartment that we were in to owning 52 houses in a year. He broke it down into bite-sized pieces. He gave us a system for doing it. And we bought several of them, I think probably most of them, without ever looking at them. Don Jones called up and said, "Hi, I've got this place here. It fits all the criteria. And what do you think?" And I remember several times saying, "Get it." I never saw it. I might not have ever seen it when up until and including when we sold it. But he got us involved in the generational wealth system. And discipline and system again we come back to. uh, he was just a one. Oh, and he said it was really cute. I said, "So Don, will you give us the best deals as you run into them?" He said, "Well, at least the second best deals." I said, "Who gets the first best deal?" He said,
He
"Me."
does. Yeah, even I knew that one.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I was 23. He said, "No, if I've got the money and it's a great deal, I'm going to take it. But I will let you have second look and second right of refusal on any deal." And he said, "You'll get a lot of first time deals." He said, "I'm not always flush with cash because because I bought 1,500 units and so on." But Don was following a system. I don't know how many he wound up with. I moved to California. We lost contact, but he was following a system. And all he did was do it diligently, daily, and he took action. And
And if you do it enough and you're really focused on it and you're really serious about it, it does become a habit.
yeah, it was oh, a cute thing about Jimmy Rucker. I was always the dreamer in the group, which was good. Rucker was a little more practical than I was, which is also good. Probably saved me from doing some really stupid things. But we would get a printout. Don also collected the rent and paid the note on the house. That was part of his deal. And for that, he got a percentage of the gross rental. And then he would send us, here it grew over time, but let's say at the peak, here are your 52 houses. Here's the rental we took in. Here's the note we paid. Here's your cash flow profit. One of them, and they all showed a small cash flow profit. Of course, paying the note was profit too, so we were doing rather well. But one of the ones on the sheet that we got monthly had a negative cash flow of $1.11. And every month when we got it, Rucker encouraged me to sell it. And I said, "Why?" "We're losing $1.11. That's why." So I tell you what, Rucker, I'll throw in $1.11 out of my own pocket so it'll go to zero. That's not the point. It's a loser.
Oh, we all think differently, right?
Hmm.
We really do.
He
Ooh,
he
we are
didn't like to
ready.
see he didn't like to see numbers in brackets.
Who does? If I see that, I'm grabbing my stomach, going, "Oh God, that's not good."
You would have voted to sell the $1.11 property yourself. We're about out of time. Why don't you tell them why I saw a wonderful thing from you today or yesterday about your podcasting counseling, for lack of a better word. Tell them what you do and how to get in touch with you.
Well, that's easy, but I also, and thank you, there's something I haven't mentioned before about sponsoring our podcast.
Do it.
The kicker is, though, that you have to have been a guest or will be a guest on your Partner in Success Radio. And that's because I have had the opportunity to, as Ben says, I already know you, I like you, and I trust you. And as he also said, just call us. You can call me directly, toll free at 888-719-67. But I have been consulting with people, back to working with me on your podcast, with people who just don't know where to start. They're terrified. They want a podcast. They're ready, but it's confusing. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and you have to know where to start. You have to have phases, and I've created that. So to work with me, again, call me 888-719-6711 or email me, mail, M-A-I-L, at your partner, no, your office on the web.com, and we can talk about it. But I've had several people in the last couple of weeks say, I'm in, just teach me. And I'm not going to do the work for you. You're going to learn it on your own because that's the only way you're going to retain it. But I give you homework. I give you a lot of information that you're just not going to find anywhere else. I think it's working really well. I'm enjoying it.
And you do a great job. I call Denise the queen of podcasting.
Yeah, I
And
see you do that on LinkedIn. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, and I really feel that way. Denise is really good, folks, in teaching you what to do and how to do it and so on without making it scary. Uh, I'm not the expert on podcasting that she is, but learning what she's taught me has been almost painless. Um, it's
Almost.
it's oh, well,
I'm doing it
it's
wrong then because I want you to go, oh, geez. Apparently I'm doing it wrong.
you're doing it perfectly. And if I were starting out in podcasting and wanted to have a podcast, I would dial 888-719-6711 only. That's the only number I need to get into the podcasting business as a guest and or as the podcaster. So absolutely do it. And if you're interested in getting the closers books, which I highly recommend,
Me
go to
too.
eBay. Yeah, go to eBay and put in Ronzoni Books, all one word, Ronzone Books, Books, all one word, and order there. And I recommend you start in the logical order: closers part one, then two, then three, and on down the line. Denise is about to add part four on podcasting to the series, and then we have five, six, seven is almost done. Eight has just been agreed to, and
Oh, is that the one that I recommended she go to?
yes,
Oh,
yeah,
right. I can't wait. She's one of our sponsors too, and I'm not going to say who it is right now because we're talking about Diana Fritz, but you're gonna love that book, Ben. She's terrific.
well, I just got the sample of a little of the writing, and I was very impressed. So, you and I, according to my clock, are done.
I think we are, and this has been a good conversation. I didn't stick my feet in my mouth, maybe
Eh,
but once or twice.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, I have to be honest here. I never know what I'm going to say. You and I have agreed on this. We don't know what we're going to say until we just said it.
That's right.
Yep. And it's fun. Well, listen, everybody, stick with us next week in part 6 of this 10-part series. We're going to talk about listening is the closer's advantage. And I talk a lot about listening on all of my podcasts. My attitude about listening is shut up and listen. Don't get in the way. Listen, you're going to learn so much more if you're actually hearing what people are saying to you. So, anyway, we will see you next week. Ben, thank you.
Thank you. And as
Bye.
we say in the South, bye.
Bye.